notice your relaxing dog walk feels more like herding caffeinated toddlers? Just wear them out, people say. And that's the received wisdom, but it's not all about energy out. It's also about the amount of chaos that goes in. Here's why more activity isn't always the fix, and what actually works instead. Hi, I'm Holly, and this is Colby, my partner in crime. I've been living with dogs for 30 years, 50 if you include my childhood dogs, and I've worked with all kinds of dogs, from show dogs to working dogs to assistance dogs, and I'm still trying to figure it all out. So what is your definition of a walk? Is your dog walk for you, or is it for your dog? Well, in my opinion, it should really be for both of you. Contrary to popular belief, it doesn't all have to be about action, momentum, and moving from A to B. I can't stress enough the importance of learning to slow down on your walks. This gives dogs a chance to learn about the world and take things in and process them without being constantly hurried on to the next stimulus, without having a chance to even realise what's hit them. You'll often actually see dogs sit down when they're thinking about something or trying to process what's going on. This is especially in common with puppies, and it's really cute seeing them sit down to think about what's going on and decide how to proceed next. Another tactic that you might see dogs use is sniffing. Sometimes this is a stalling activity. You'll often see them do that if a dog is approaching and they want to process the situation, slow things down, and decide how to proceed safely. Another reason that dogs do this is what you'll sometimes hear called popping the bubble of tension. So if an approach seems a bit intense with too much eye contact, that can be intimidating or threatening or just impolite among dogs. So a lot of dogs will break eye contact and sniff just to dispel some of that awkwardness, to act as an icebreaker and to show the other dog that they don't mean any harm. And so our first piece of advice is don't always walk. When you're out on a walk, it's equally acceptable to have a little stand or a little sit and have a look what's going on. Take things slowly. Mindfulness is a great activity for people. It's really beneficial for your mental health, and it's also great for your dog's mental health. Watching the world go by really helped Colby, who sometimes can be a bit of an anxious dog, and certainly more so when he was an adolescent. Puppies and adolescents go through various fear periods which are built in to help them to be cautious in the wild, but can lead to some strange fears and phobias and behaviours in our pet dogs. Some of the things that Colby randomly was afraid of were hats, sunglasses, large backpacks, bouldering mats, and very fluffy dogs. But just taking that time to stand or sit or hang about and observe these things from a safe distance so that he could see what was going on without reaching a high threshold really helped him to adjust to getting used to those stimuli. Another valuable reason for slowing down on your walks is that your dog comes to associate walks with a calmer experience. They're not thinking the lead's out, it's go, go, go time. Let's go crazy, let's move. A slower walk is really good as far as keeping your dog calmer in that build up to the actual walk. They're not just expecting constant ball throws. They know that it's as much about chilling as it is about activity. A really good activity for your dog is what you'll sometimes hear called a sniffari. Basically just a slow, sniffy walk. Sniffing is incredibly good for your dog's mental and physical health. They say that 20 minutes of intense sniffing for a dog is as tiring for their brain as 1 full hour of physical exercise. And as we've talked before about, no matter how physically tired your dog is, if they're not mentally tired, and if they don't get that fulfillment, they're not going to settle. So sniffing is absolutely fantastic for that. And I've never met a dog that didn't like to sniff. Going on a walk and not allowing your dog to sniff is akin to taking your friend to visit a wonderful gallery and insisting that they do so blindfolded. They really are missing out on a lot if you don't allow them to sniff. I hate seeing people dragging their dogs along, not allowing them to stop for 1 minute on walks. Why do dogs love sniffing so much? Dogs have 300 million scent receptors in their nose compared to the meagre 6 million that we have. Not only can they experience smells much more intently for that reason, and because they have the Jacobson's organ, which is like a shelf in the nose where they sort of store molecules so they increase in intensity and they can pick up on chemicals and scents that way that we don't have. But the part of their brain that processes scent is far, far bigger, makes up a bigger proportion of their brain than in humans. That olfactory processing that goes on in a dog's brain is linked to the same part of our brain that processes visual input. It's been posited that dogs can almost see with their noses. I would love to be a dog for a day and find out what it's actually like. So I've heard people say, oh, dogs' colour perception is much more limited than ours. Their world must be so dull and uninteresting. But I can't help thinking that if a dog realised how rubbish our sense of smell was, he'd probably be feeling sorry for us. So as we've said, sniffing is crucial to a dog's mental health and crucial to how a dog, how a dog makes sense of the world. And one of the reasons for this is we've talked about mindfulness, but sniffing is really like a little meditation for dogs. It's been shown to slow their breathing and slow their heart rate. So it really helps them to self-regulate in stressful situations. Instead of hurrying them away, actually sniffing will help them to self-regulate in a worrying or stressful situation, which is why throwing treats for dogs when there's something at a distance that's slightly worrying at them is a really useful thing to do. It's not actually eating the treat that is the reinforcer for thinking the thing's safe. It's engaging that part of their brain and becoming calmer around that thing, which is reinforcing a more relaxed attitude towards that stimulus, instead of just getting more and more hyper the more exciting things happen. Slow walking is also better for building muscle in dogs. So Colby has had problems with luxating patella, which basically means his kneecaps don't fit properly and they have a tendency to pop out. It's not the most severe case. He didn't need an operation, but he did see a veterinary physiotherapist who is absolutely wonderful. And she explained to me that dogs will often put weight on their front paws a lot. And so it doesn't help him to build muscle in his back leg. And also a trot or a quick walk or a run doesn't distribute the weight in the same way. If a dog is walking very slowly, like it would on a slow sniffy walk, because they're putting their feet down one at a time, it distributes the weight better. So the dog will actually be putting more weight. In Colby's case, he was putting more weight then on that right back leg that we needed to build the muscle up to support the joint. So that was a really crucial part of his rehabilitation, along with his physio exercises. Now you might say, oh, that's all very well and good. I can see the benefits, but my dog just won't slow down on walks. Then I would say, carry on watching the rest of this series, because I'm going to go into other ways that you can help your dog be happier and reach a calmer state. And we've already talked a little bit about giving your dog your full attention, but there's a lot more to talk about. So if your dog struggles to slow down on walks, and I know my terriers tended to have difficulty slowing down on walks, it doesn't necessarily always come to them naturally. So here are a few ideas for encouraging your dog to slow down on walks. So the first thing I would say is it might be useful to try and find a calm dog to walk with. Colby's got several friends. He's got one friend called Icky, who's a little bit younger than him. And the two of them, I mean, it's like two Tasmanian devils when they're loose. They'll chase each other everywhere. But he's got other friends as well. Max, a little Cavapoo friend of his. He's a senior dog now. He's getting on a bit and he won't take any nonsense. And he'll just potter around. There's no way he's going to be charging about like a nutcase and playing. So Colby tends to moderate his behaviour in such a way to be acceptable as Max's companion. And they do enjoy each other's company. But having an elder, statesman-like dog does help him to calm down a little bit. When you go for a walk, It's tempting to think that there's only certain locations which are really acceptable for a dog walk, but I would say in this case, take your dog somewhere really boring. Don't just take them to the dog park or somewhere and play fetch, fetch, fetch the whole time and they get all hyper. Try taking them around a housing estate. Try taking them to a really boring field where there's not that many distractions, and that will encourage them to sniff. If you can take them somewhere where there's been wildlife, luckily where we live, there's loads of cats, foxes, and so on. And that means a lot of interesting smells. Unfortunately, for some dogs, those smells will be just a bit too exciting for the dog to pick up. But you do see Colby picking up a scent and then he follows it. It's really great to see. But yeah, housing estates, playing fields, even car parks, pretty boring locations. Sometimes take your dogs to those places and then they don't have that pent up excitement of, we're at the park, it's go, 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 go. No, this is a boring place. Yeah, he agrees. We're just going to explore some smells, potter around and watch what's going on. Another great thing that you can do to slow your dog down and get them sniffing and learning the joys of sniffing is to scatter feed your dog. If your dog gets very excited going on walks, you can do this with a snuffle mat. But if you can go out into the garden, if you can go out into another outdoor space, grass is nature's snuffle mat. Throw some treats. Get your dog sniffing for them. Start with just one at a time if necessary. Make them really, really easy and then very gradually up the game. So Colby finds this really fulfilling. He absolutely loves a scatter feed and it's really fun to watch him because you can see him now. He'll use the wind and you can see him going downwind and trying to locate where the smell comes from. Autumn provides more opportunities because if there's a lot of fallen leaves, that's really good to throw the treats among them. In the spring and summer, when there's a bit more growth, you can do it into longer grass and cover. So yeah, scatter feeding, absolutely brilliant for getting your dog to learn to slow down and to sniff. Back in the day when I used to train dogs in the 90s, one of the first things that we would do would try and get dogs' brains engaged and slow them down. And we used to set up a very basic DIY agility course with cones and little jumps to step over to start with. And that was really, really good for associating the lead with the dog focusing on you and having to use its brain and not just being able to rush ahead, but having to negotiate obstacles. And it worked really well. Maybe start that at home, but dogs have trouble extrapolating behaviours into different locations. So I would try and do that in different places. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be a bolster cushion on the floor for your dog to step over, you know, whatever you can find. I get Colby sometimes jumping onto park benches or onto bollards in the park. He likes to balance along walls. Sometimes if there's railings or bollards close together, you can get them weaving in and out. Just use your imagination and follow your dog's inclinations, and that can be really good. He likes a little bit of doggy parkour, as you might have seen in his boulder videos where he likes to climb up boulders. He's a bit of a mountain goat. Another thing you can do, if that all sounds a bit too energetic, another thing that you can do is simply sit down. I will often sit on a park bench with Colby and he'll sit next to me and just watch what's going on. If your dog finds this challenging at first, you don't have to do it for very long. And what you can also do is bring a snack or a chew or a favourite toy of your dog, engage them in a bit of play, just get them used to stopping for a while. If you're more mobile than I am, you can sit on the grass. You might find it easier to get up than I do. In the summer, obviously, you don't want a wet bum. Another brilliant thing that you can do to slow your dog down, and it took me a while to figure this one out, was reinforce eye contact from your dog when you're on walks, either on lead or off lead. So encourage your dog to make eye contact with you. And when they do, use a clicker or a marker word. I use yes. Reinforce that with treats, because while your dog's making eye contact with you, they're focused on you and they're not running off and getting into all sorts of mischief or even pulling on the lead. So it's a really useful thing. And it also, I found with Colby, encourages him to check in on walks. One of the things that contributes to walks being hectic, go, 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 exciting experiences is often if you play a lot of fetch with your dog using balls or frisbees or sticks or whatever. And what I would recommend here is, instead of throwing the ball and getting your dog to constantly chase after it, because that's very exciting and speeds things up, raises the dog's arousal levels. If instead of just throwing it and letting the dog chase, actually hide it or throw it somewhere where it's not obvious and the dog has to search for it. That gets your dog's brain engaged as well as his body, and also slows down the chaos and the high octane excitability, but still giving them an activity that they enjoy. Dogs are fantastic at picking up on cues. Colby knows that once he hears my husband's laptop close, click, we're probably going for a walk. He starts to get quite excited. For you, it might be putting your shoes on, getting the dog's lead. All that starts to get your dog excited in anticipation for the walk. So I would try to keep cues to a minimum so that your dog's not already hyper before you even leave the house. Another thing that I would say is to maximise your dog's window of opportunity. And what I mean by that is, if you're only going on short walks every day, maybe one short walk every day, your dog's thinking, right, I've got X amount of time, I need to get everything I possibly can done in that time before we have to go home again. So it really is worth putting aside as much time as you can comfortably manage to take your dog for a walk. Now you might be thinking, I can't walk that far, so I can't do that. But as we've looked at, walks shouldn't and don't need to be all about activity, distance and go, go, go. They're about engaging your dog with you and engaging your dog with your environment. You don't have to go very far, but you don't have to go very fast, which means you can open that window of opportunity for dogs by not necessarily going further, but by slowing down on your walks and maybe even sitting. Because the dog gets to be out for longer, there's not that same desperation to investigate everything, meet every dog, do everything. If your dog is toy motivated, you could have a special toy that you only use on walks and the rest of the time you put it away. Colby's got a particular fondness for the Tuginoff rabbit skin pocket squeakers. I don't buy him that many because he will destroy them rapidly because he's quite keen on them, which is unusual for him because he's not very toy centred. But I did have one that I kept just for walks, and I would hide that in the undergrowth for him. And because he only got to have it in that situation, it meant that he was more focused on it. If your dog loves toys anyway, then you're already halfway there. So yeah, seek and retrieve instead of fetch is definitely the way to go to keep things on a calmer keel. I also think it's really important to try and find an environment where you can engage in this off-lead safely. And that way it gives them more autonomy and a chance to explore in a way that's rewarding to them and to focus and linger on those things that are important to them, which as humans we tend to routinely overlook. It's a very useful skill to teach to off-lead dogs is to just change direction randomly. Don't warn your dog necessarily, but don't abandon them either, but they get to learn that you're not entirely predictable. They have to keep an eye on you, and it encourages them to check in and slow down on walks. This will be easier for some dogs than others. Some dogs are more chill, some dogs are more engaged with their environment, but the point is that this can all be learnt. If you can find opportunities to do this safely, even if you're starting out in your living room or your backyard, it really does help for your dog to be calm and for your dog to focus on these beneficial activities. So that's the second video in my series of 10 videos, each outlining a simple action that you can take to make your dog's life a little happier and hopefully your life a little happier. There's still 8 actions to go, so if you don't want to miss out on the other things you can do, then please subscribe like this video if you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again soon. Again, I'm sharing things that I found have worked for me and Colby, but you know your dog better than anyone, and let your dog be your guide. So long as you're doing your best for your dog, you're doing everything you need to do. If your dog could write a review of your walks, what score do you think he'd say? What feedback? I would be very interested to hear that as well. I think Colby would say 8 out of 10, more sausage required. Hi, here's Colby, look.